What's up, y'all? It's Mrs. Madsen. Today we are going to put fractions and decimals on a number line. You're going to be able to break up whole numbers on a number line, and I'll be able to give you any fraction or any decimal, positive fraction or decimal, and put it on the number line. I have a very simple two-step process in order to put fractions and decimals on a number line. Let's start with fractions. Step number one is to find the two whole numbers it goes between. Let me explain what that looks like. So 2 and 2/5 is greater than 2, right? But not yet at 3. Would you like to say hello to my class?
I'm just curious.
I just barely got started.
Your laptop and iPad are connected. What the heck?
I know, it's magic, huh?
Sorry.
You gotta come say hi because everyone's gonna wonder.
Hi.
It's Mr. Madsen. Mr. Nick. All right, so 2 and 2/5 is between 2, but not yet at 3, right? 1/4, if I look and see what 1/4 is, well, it's bigger than nothing, right? It's at least a little something, but it's also not the whole pizza. So it's between 0 and 1. You're really making me nervous by staring at me.
Sorry, I was just looking at the other still blown away.
1.5 is more than 1, right? Because it's 1.5. But it's not yet at 2, or it'd be called 2. 2 and 3/4 is bigger than 2, but not yet at 3. And 2/3 is, 2/3. Well, if I look, there's no whole number in front of it, right? So it is bigger than nothing, but it's not one whole of something again. So that's step number one. Find, narrow, like a number line goes on forever that way, goes on forever that way. To put a number on a number line, narrow it down to at least the two whole numbers that it's between. Okay. Step number two is once you have those two whole numbers, is to take the 2 and the 3, the whole number, and split it up into whatever the denominator is. So that 2 and 2/5 was between 2 and 3. And we're going to split it up into 5 equal parts because it's 2 and 2/5. So the best way I like to do this is I like to start with 1, 2, 3, 4, and then the last one should be right there at the very next whole number. So what you see, I'm actually going to do that better because that's not very equal, is it? They're supposed to be equal parts. So let me try that again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's a little bit better. So what we have here is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 equal parts. I only had to cut it 4 times and it got me 5 equal parts. So now with those 5 equal parts, I can count to this number. So there's 2 and 1/5 right there, and 2 and 2/5 right there. So 2 and 2/5 is exactly 2/5 of the way to the whole number 3. All right, let's practice some more of those. We already know that 1/4 we said was between 0 and 1. So we're going to narrow our focus to just what's between 0 and 1. And we're going to divide the space between 0 and 1 into 4 equal parts. So I'm going to cut it 3 times. 1, 2, 3, and that fourth one will be right there at 1 whole. Again, that gives me 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces between 0 and 1, which is what I want. And then I am going to put my point right at the first cut mark in my little candy bar right here, and that is 1/4. Okay, so the next one is between 1 and 2. So here's 1, here's 2. We're going to cut it into just 2 pieces. Boom, 1.5. You probably know that's going to be exactly in the middle between 1 and 2. So 1.5 is exactly halfway between 1 and 2. 2 and 3/4. So here's our 2. Oh, guess what? How many of you are going to want to raise your hand and be like, Mrs. Madsen, 2 and 3/4 is not between 3 and 4. 2 and 3/4 is bigger than 2, but not yet to 3. And you are exactly right. So don't bother raising your hand and telling me what mistake I made because I found it myself. There's probably some other mistake that I'll have made, but for now, we're just going to go with this. So 2 and 3/4 is between 2 and 3, and we're going to divide it into fourths. So if I go 1, 2, 3, 4, I've got my 4 equal parts, and I need to go to the third one. So 1, 2, 3, that is 2 and 3/4. We getting it? Okay, the last one is 2/3, which is between 0 and 1. And I'm actually going to go back up a few slides and put 2/3 right here. Okay, so this one's a little trickier because if we look, this one is also between 0 and 1. You might be like, well, I've already got it divided up into fourths. What am I supposed to do? Do I just go 1, 2 and put it right there? No, that, my friends, is 2/4. We're not going to 2/4. We're trying to get to 2/3. So what I would suggest doing is getting a different color or just doing different marks, thicker marks or longer marks or something, and do it another time. This time we're going to divide 0 and 1 into thirds. So I'm going to go 1, 2, and 3. So now I'm kind of only looking at the purple, and 2/3 will be right there. Does that make sense? So don't panic if there's already tick marks. Erase the tick marks or do them in a different color so that you can see the thirds now instead of focusing on the fourths. Kind of cool, huh? So now let's talk about decimals on a number line. Same exact first step. We're going to figure out the two numbers that it's between. So if you want to pause right now and see if you can figure out and write down the two numbers it's between before I move on, that would be awesome. 0.6 is between 0 and 1. I often sometimes will have kids go like, well, it's between 0 and 6. No, it's between 0 and the very next number after 0 is 1. So 2.7 is between 2 and the very next number after 2 is 3. 1.5 is between 1 and 2. 1 and 2,500, or sorry, 0 and 2,500 will be between 0 and 1 because it's the very next whole number. Okay. Then step 2, instead of having to look at the denominator because decimals don't have denominators, decimals will always be divided into tenths because this is 6/10, right? This is 2 and 7/10. This is 1 and 5/10. So anytime you see a decimal, you're going to put 10 tick marks between the two whole numbers. Let me give you another example. Let's do that 6/10. We know that it's between 0 and 1. So between 0 and 1, let's do the 10 tick marks. Here's a little hint for you because 10's a lot and sometimes we can go big and then have to go like really small, right? So instead of doing that, I know that 5 is exactly halfway between. So then I just go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And that kind of gives me an idea. Okay. Then if I need to go to the sixth one, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 0.6. Cool beans, huh? Next one is 2.7, which is between 2 and 3. Let's do those 10 tick marks. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And 2.7, well, here's 2. So now let's just go the 7/10 more. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 2.7. You getting excited? You want to try the next one on your own? Pause it and see if you can place 1.5, which actually you guys know that 1 and 1.5, you know that 0.5 is the same as half, right? So you could do the 10 tick marks, or you could just know that it's going to be right smack dab in the middle between 1 and 2. All righty. Very good. Let's go 1 and 25. 25 hundredths? Okay, that's 25 hundredths. How am I going to put that on a number line? Well, I know it's between 0 and 1, but 25 hundredths, I have these divided into tenths, like 1/10, 2/10, 3/10, right? Any ideas what you could do? Hopefully you're like, oh, well, why don't I just make it tenths? Oh, do you see what I did there? So now I have them into hundredths. And 25 hundredths would probably be not probably. It is exactly between 0.2 and 0.3. It is 25 hundredths. So if you need to, you can put zero. Oh, that was an eraser. Put zeros behind your tick marks on a decimal to make it into hundredths or thousandths. Okay, my friends, kind of new and interesting. Two things I want you to remember. Focus in on what the two whole numbers are, the bigger whole number and the lesser whole number that it's between. And then if it's a fraction, divide it into whatever the denominator is. If it's a decimal, divide it into tenths. There you go, my friends. Have at it on your practice.